This is a matter of life and death. But I can perform this miracle.
World War II would be over. Our boys would come home.
Oppenheimer is written and directed by Christopher Nolan, starring Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt, and Robert Downey Jr., and a crazy amount of other talented actors as well. Like, the list really does keep going on. It's mind-blowing to think how they got all these talented people. The film is based off the biography American Prometheus that follows the life of the theoretical physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, who is considered the key pivotal figure in developing the very first nuclear weapons through the Manhattan Project during World War II. Being a big fan of Nolan's other movies, this was easily one of my most anticipated movies of the entire year. Leading up to it, many outlets were already calling it one of the most important movies ever made due to the significance of the atomic bomb and the impact that it still has today. So even though I tried my hardest not to, admittedly, I had pretty high expectations going into this movie. And I'm happy to say that it not only met those already inflated high expectations, but also managed to surpass them. This movie is incredible, so let's just start getting into it. I'm just gonna start off by saying that this might just be one of the best crafted movies that Nolan has ever made, as he truly puts on a tour de force in filmmaking. When you leave a movie feeling impacted by the story that was told and you feel the weight of what it was trying to convey, that in my opinion is often when movies are at their best, and it's what Oppenheimer does here. Even though this is a 3-hour movie, it never truly feels like it, as we jump from scene to scene at such a fast pace throughout it. I find that a lot of times during the course of a movie there are general lulls and times where things really start to slow down. And generally the longer the movie is, the more of those slower moments we actually tend to get. Yet somehow the momentum of this infectious energy the movie starts with is carried over not only through the first hour of the film, but throughout the entirety of the duration of it all. Which is mind-blowing to think that it was pulled off in such a manner. Needless to say, this was probably the fastest 3-hour movie that I've ever watched, let alone one that was a biography. For those who didn't study much of any physics, at the surface one might think that they'll get lost at some point in the movie because there's a lot of it. But the way that Nolan crafted it all through these cleverly written conversations and callbacks made it so much easier to grasp. And a lot of the movie really is essentially various groups of people in a room all talking, but filmed in such a dynamic way that never once had me checking my phone. This really allowed them to dive deep into the psyche of Oppenheimer as a person, not only during the creation of the A-bomb, but also his moral quandaries surrounding it. And how Nolan chooses to showcase this through these almost dreamlike sequences through his point of view was very moving, and are some of the top scenes that are left with me the most after my experience with this film. Now, not going into any spoilers here, there are quite a few scenes that are incredibly impactful for many reasons. One of them has a group of people trying to decide which city that they want to use the bomb on. And how they go about the decision is not only incredibly eye-opening, but also chilling to think such a thing could be done so casually by those who were in charge at the time. And really makes you think about how even big decisions today are decided. That's actually a really common theme throughout the course of this movie, how those who are in power often are the most careless to use it. But also how those at the top are often far too eager to take credit from those whose creations aren't even theirs. There's another scene that exemplifies this very well with Oppenheimer and the president that just leaves the worst kind of taste in your mouth after all is said and done. But that's what the storytelling of this movie really excelled at. Telling a story about something that is so morally complicated and eventually how it impacts all of those who are involved. The other shining highlight of the movie was the amazing performances, which of course were led by Cillian Murphy as Oppenheimer. He was able to play the role of an intellectual so very well, as he brought a cerebral-like nature to it. This character really goes through so much with the weight of so many people on him throughout the course of the film, and Cillian Murphy pulls that off exceptionally well. This is the best work I've ever seen him in, and fully deserves an Academy Award nomination for this. But the rest of the cast are all suited for their respective roles perfectly, and surprisingly had some very talented actors only having small parts in it. But those small roles feel like they were written just for them, as they were very memorable even with such little screen time. However, the one that stood head and shoulders amongst the rest, in my opinion, here was Robert Downey Jr. He plays Louis Strauss in this, who oversaw much of the development of nuclear weapons at the time of its inception, and had a working relationship with Oppenheimer that was explored through much of the political underbelly of the movie. But this is where RDJ really shined. He plays someone with such a vendetta and disdain that just drives every single decision he makes. The depths that this man goes to in a supporting actor role is remarkable to see, and is what I think might just be one of his best performances ever. The last major thing that I really enjoyed about this movie that I really need to talk about is the technical aspect. The music by Ludwig Göransson in this movie is the driving force behind it, no doubt. And honestly, without it, it wouldn't have the same pacing or excitement to any degree. Göransson's touch is literally all over this movie, and I honestly cannot overstate how much of an impact it has. Also, the editing is another thing I really need to call out. How this film seamlessly transitions between multiple conversations on physics without making the audience's head spin is truly truly an outstanding feat. But the production staff who created the sets and explosions that we see so much of on screen might just deserve the biggest applause here. The sets they were able to create as well as the explosions we see are all top tier. Also, apparently Nolan wanted the entire cast of the movie to see the explosions in person to feel the gravity of it all. And during these days when they shot it, Robert Downey Jr. ordered an ice cream truck for the entire crew, which must have felt pretty great for them considering they shot all of that in a desert for days. Okay, so since no movie is exactly perfect, let's go through some areas where I think this movie could improve upon. With one major area in particular being how little, if any, they showed of the A-bomb's impact on the Japanese people. There is one scene where Oppenheimer is watching footage of what happened when the bomb went off, and although we only get to see his reaction to it, it is very powerful stuff. And I know that much of the story is told through the lens of Oppenheimer himself and what he went through, hence the black and white to color transitions throughout much of it. But I do think that any amount of perspective from those who were affected most by his creation would have been a more than appropriate addition to this movie. Even a little bit more time spent on the people who were affected in Los Alamos would have been a nice addition as well. But overall, Oppenheimer is a sensational movie, with it showcasing what a visionary director can do at the top of his game. The cast and crew all combined to make something that will be truly memorable for time to come and will likely receive a lot of award consideration in the future. That is why I'm gonna give Oppenheimer a 9.5 out of 10. It truly is an incredible movie. If you haven't had a chance to see it yet, I'd recommend seeing it on the biggest theater near you possible, as I saw it in IMAX and it was totally worth it. Anyways, if you really enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up as it really helps a lot, and let me know what you thought about the movie Oppenheimer in the comments down below. Also, if you're someone who enjoys movies or gaming or anime, that's what I talk about here, so feel free to subscribe to my channel for more. And I'll see you next time. I am truly amazed at how many characters are in this movie and how many of them appear on screen at the same time. And combine that with the fact that many of them are in completely unique art styles from one another, and you get something that is both gorgeous and technically impressive. This movie is truly breathtaking in every visual sense of the word. It'll be winning a lot of awards for animation for sure. But behind all the incredible work that the animators have pulled off here, there's a truly touching yet riveting story about family and those that we hold dearest in our lives.